Have you ever noticed that the silence at night no longer feels the same as before? When the house grows quiet and the world slows down, even the smallest sounds become clearer. When we were younger, quietness brought peace. But as we grow older, that same quiet sometimes carries a gentle weight that presses on the chest and the mind. The ticking clock sounds louder, memories move more freely, and thoughts that were hidden during the day begin to speak. Many older people sit in the darkness, tired but unable to sleep, awake but not at ease, surrounded by a silence that is no longer soothing. Anxiety does not always arrive as intense panic. Sometimes it simply sits down beside you like an invisible companion, breathing softly, reminding you about your health, about words left unsaid, about children and grandchildren far away, about time moving faster each year. It plants questions about the future and pulls images from the past, creating a gentle but constant wave inside a body that only wants to rest. But this does not mean you are weak. It does not mean something is wrong with you. In Buddhist wisdom, these restless moments are not punishments but invitations to awaken. They invite you to look more deeply. They invite you to listen. They invite you to understand what the heart has been carrying after many years of living, loving, losing, and enduring. Anxiety is not your enemy. It is your teacher. It appears to show where fear still lives, where attachment still holds on, and where compassion needs to grow the most. Just as pain in the body signals a place that needs care, discomfort in the mind signals a place that needs attention and gentleness. When we push anxiety away, it grows stronger. When we meet it with mindfulness, it begins to soften. Tonight, instead of fighting the uneasy feeling sitting beside you, what would happen if you allowed it to be there without judgment? What if this restlessness is guiding you toward a peaceful strength you have never touched before? In this video, we will explore a simple yet profound Buddhist perspective that turns anxiety from a burden into a doorway to balance and inner calm. Not by forcing yourself to be calm or denying fear, but by seeing clearly, breathing gently, and learning to return the mind to stillness even in the later years of life. If you have ever felt alone with your thoughts in the dark, stay with me. What you are experiencing is more common than you think, and within it already lies the seed of healing that begins with gentle awareness and breath. When we begin to look directly at anxiety instead of running away from it, something important slowly becomes clear. Anxiety does not appear by chance. It is not a random wind passing through the mind. In Buddhism, every emotion has a cause, and anxiety is no different. It often arises from two deep currents within us. One is attachment to the things we love. The other is resistance to the things we fear. We cling to our health because it once made us feel strong. We cling to the role of being a parent because it once gave us meaning. We cling to familiar routines because they create a sense of safety. When we are younger, these things seem stable. But over time, the body changes, circumstances change, and the people around us change. And when what we cling to begins to shake, the mind becomes uneasy. At the same time, we resist change. We fear illness. We fear loneliness. We fear being forgotten. We fear losing our independence. Each time a sign of aging appears, the mind pushes back. It whispers that things should not be this way. It tries to hold on to the past. This resistance is what makes anxiety grow stronger. Buddhism teaches that life is impermanent. Everything comes and goes like clouds moving across the sky. The body changes, relationships change, even emotions do not stay still. When we understand this with wisdom, the heart becomes lighter. But when we forget it and wish everything could remain the same, anxiety begins to arise. There is a story about an older man named Tom. For more than 40 years, every morning he walked around the park near his home. It was not just exercise. It was a time to greet friends, breathe in the fresh air, and feel healthy and useful. Walking became part of who he was. Then one day, his knee began to hurt. The doctor advised him to rest. At first, it was only for a few weeks, but the pain did not go away. The morning walks disappeared from his life, and with them the sense of peace slowly faded too. Tom began to feel anxious each morning. He sat by the window watching others walk by, his heart tightening. He was not only sad about not being able to walk, he was afraid that he was truly growing old. He was afraid of losing the person he once was. Tom's anxiety did not come from his knee. It came from attachment to the image of himself as strong and from resistance to the changing reality. He clung to the past. He fought the present. And between those two, his mind was filled with unrest. When a friend gently reminded him that life is always moving and that his value was not in his ability to walk, Tom slowly began to see differently. He learned to sit quietly and breathe each morning. He started talking more with his neighbors. Even though his knee still hurt, his heart felt lighter. Anxiety often arises when we believe we once had control and are now losing it. But the deeper truth is that we never truly controlled the flow of life at all. The body has always been changing day by day. Circumstances have always been shifting. It was simply less noticeable when we were younger. When we understand that attachment and resistance are the roots of suffering, we begin to have another choice. We can loosen our grip, we can soften our acceptance, and from there, anxiety is no longer a mysterious intruder. It becomes a sign guiding us back to the truth of impermanence and to compassion for ourselves. In everyday life, our minds continuously create endless streams of thoughts. Some are pleasant, some are frightening, and some are neutral, passing by and disappearing. What matters is that we often believe everything that appears in the mind reflects the truth. This belief feeds anxiety more than any situation outside of us. When a thought arises that health will keep getting worse, that children and grandchildren will drift away, that the future will be empty, the body reacts immediately. The chest tightens, the stomach contracts, the breath becomes shorter. All of this happens because of a story in the mind. No real danger is present in that moment. Yet the mind behaves as if something terrible is about to happen. In Buddhist wisdom, thoughts are seen as phenomena that arise and pass away. They come and go without a fixed nature. Like clouds drifting across the sky, they take different shapes and colors but never stay for long. The sky behind them remains wide and calm, whether the clouds are thick or thin. When we learn to see thoughts as clouds, we are no longer carried away by each passing image of the mind. Instead of arguing with a thought or trying to change it, the simple practice is to observe. Notice when an anxious thought appears. Acknowledge it gently. Do not judge it. Do not run from it. Just know that a thought is present. Then continue breathing slowly and evenly. Many people are surprised to discover that simply being seen, thoughts naturally begin to weaken. There was an older woman named Marlene who lived alone after her husband passed away. Each night when she lay down, her mind painted frightening scenes. She feared falling with no one to help. She feared the house becoming too empty. She feared that she would not be able to bear the loneliness. These thoughts repeated again and again, making her heart race and sleep difficult. During a mindfulness session, she was encouraged to try something very simple. Each time fear appeared, she quietly said in her mind, "This is just a thought." There was no need to remove it, no need to prove it wrong. Just recognize it. At first, the feelings were still strong, but after a few days, she began to notice that thoughts came and went like small waves on the surface of a lake. One evening, when the familiar fear appeared, she acknowledged it and returned to her breath. She suddenly realized that she was safe, lying calmly in her bed, with no danger happening. The distance between the story in her mind and reality became clear. From that point on, anxiety no longer took over her whole awareness as before. This is the beginning of not identifying with thoughts. You are not the sentences that echo in your mind. You are the awareness that is observing them. With this distance, the heart becomes lighter and freer. Not every thought deserves your trust. Many thoughts are simply habits of fear and old memories. When you learn to see them like clouds passing across the sky of the mind, you slowly return to the peace that has always been present behind every movement. Anxiety almost never exists in the present moment. It lives in what has not yet happened, in the assumptions about tomorrow, in the images the mind creates about the future. When the mind leaves this moment and wanders ahead, the body reacts as if danger is right in front of us. The heart beats faster, the breath becomes shallow, the muscles tighten, and a cycle of unrest begins. Buddhism teaches that peace is not found in controlling the future, but in the ability to return to the present. Right now, right here, not tomorrow, not next week, just this moment as it is. The simplest and most powerful tool to return to the present is the breath. The breath is always here. You do not need to search for it. You do not need to buy it. You only need to notice it. When you feel the air entering the nose, the chest gently rising, and then slowly releasing the breath, the mind begins to leave future stories and return to the living body. Each breath is like an anchor keeping the boat of the mind from being pulled into the ocean of anxiety. When waves of thoughts rise, you do not need to stop them. You only need to drop the anchor into the breath. Gradually, the water becomes calm. There was an older man named Frank who lived with constant worry after retiring. Before, each day was filled with work. When it stopped, time suddenly felt empty. His mind began filling that space with fear. Fear of illness, fear of being useless, fear that the final years of life would be nothing but waiting. One morning, Frank decided to go into the small garden behind his house. He did not know what meditation was. He simply sat down on an old wooden chair, watched sunlight pass through the leaves, and began to breathe more slowly. He noticed the sound of birds, the smell of damp earth, the feeling of his feet touching the ground. At first, thoughts still raced everywhere, but each time he realized he was worrying, he returned to the breath. He did this every day, just 10 minutes each morning. After a few weeks, Frank noticed something had changed. Anxiety had not completely disappeared, but it no longer swept him away as before. He could feel the quiet space between thoughts. The garden became the place where he returned to himself. Frank understood that peace does not come from removing every fear, but from learning to stay in the present where no disaster is happening. There is only light, breath, and life. In Buddhism, there is a beautiful image. You are the sky, not the storm. Thoughts and emotions are like clouds and wind. They come and go, sometimes strong, sometimes gentle, but the sky behind them is always wide and steady. When you return to the breath, you are returning to that sky. Each time anxiety rises, gently place one hand on the chest, one on the belly, and breathe slowly 3 times. Feel the body. Listen to the sounds around you. Notice the colors in front of you. You are here, and in this moment, you are safe. There is no need to do anything big, no need to change your life in a single day. Simply return to the present moment again and again. In this simplicity, peace begins to grow naturally and steadily. Many of us grew up in a generation that learned to endure. When sad, we stayed silent. When in pain, we tried to bear it. When anxious, we told ourselves to be stronger. We were taught that complaining was weakness, that heavy emotions should be hidden, that we should always appear fine so as not to burden others. Yet this very habit of enduring is what allows anxiety to sink deeper into the heart. When uneasiness appears, the first reaction for many people is self-blame. Why do I think so much? Why can I not be calmer? Why am I still worried about small things at this age? Each of these questions is like a tiny needle adding to the pain that already exists. Anxiety is not only present, it is also wrapped in shame and self-judgment. In Buddhism, compassion is not only for others but first of all for ourselves. Compassion is the ability to meet suffering with gentleness instead of fighting it. When we hold emotions with understanding and warmth, the heart begins to open. And within that open space, healing can finally take place. There was an older woman named Ruth who lived for many years with quiet anxiety. She always appeared strong in front of her children and grandchildren, but each night she lay awake with restless thoughts. Every time worry arose, she blamed herself for being weak. She compared herself to others and felt ashamed for not being able to control her mind. One day during a meditation gathering, the teacher suggested treating oneself the way we would treat a frightened child. Not scolding, not forcing, just listening and comforting. Ruth felt those words touch something deep inside her. That evening, when the familiar worry appeared, instead of criticizing herself, she gently placed a hand on her chest. She felt her heart beating fast and softly whispered within that she was afraid and that it was okay. She spoke to herself the way she would to a close friend, telling herself she was here, she was safe, and she did not need to be strong right now. At first it felt strange, but after a few minutes, her breathing slowed, her chest softened. The anxiety had not completely disappeared, but it was no longer as sharp as before. For the first time in many years, Ruth felt warmth spreading through her body. She began practicing this each time anxiety appeared, placing a hand on her heart, breathing slowly, speaking gentle words. Gradually, she realized she no longer needed to fight her emotions. She only needed to be with them. Compassion transformed Ruth's relationship with anxiety. Instead of seeing it as an enemy to be removed, she saw it as a signal that a part of her was asking for care. And when that part was heard, anxiety naturally softened. You can try this right now as well. Place one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly. Breathe in slowly and deeply. Breathe out gently. Whisper that you are going through a difficult moment and that you deserve kindness toward yourself. Compassion does not make anxiety disappear immediately, but it changes the space around anxiety. It turns a prison into a path of healing. When you meet emotion with love, the heart no longer closes, and within that opening, peace slowly finds its way back. When the mind has learned to observe thoughts, return to the breath, and hold emotions with compassion, a deeper door within Buddhist teaching begins to open. This is where the root of inner freedom is found, not in controlling anxiety, but in clearly seeing its nature and our own. In Buddhism, there is a very ancient yet powerful practice often called contemplation of non-self. It is contained in 3 simple sentences that can shake suffering at its core. This is not mine. This is not me. This is not who I truly am. When an uncomfortable emotion appears, we often silently say, I am anxious, I am afraid, I am restless. That small word makes the feeling heavier. We unknowingly merge ourselves with the emotional wave that is rising, and once we become it, it carries us away. The teaching of non-self reminds us that emotions are simply phenomena arising in the mind. They are not the essence of who you are. They are like weather passing across the sky. There is rain, there is wind, there is sunshine, but the sky never becomes the storm. When you gently say, "This is not mine," you are releasing ownership. You are no longer gripping anxiety as something you must hold. When you say, "This is not me," you separate yourself from the emotion. You no longer identify with the mental wave. And when you say, "This is not who I truly am," you return to the awakened, open, peaceful nature beneath all movement. There was an older man named Walter who sank deeply into anxiety after his wife passed away. They had lived together for more than 50 years. When she died, the house became painfully empty. Every corner carried memories. Every evening brought fear and loneliness. Walter began to believe he was a lonely person, a broken person, someone no longer whole. His anxiety was not only sadness. It was the feeling that life had split in two. He thought he would never be okay again. These thoughts repeated every day. During a conversation with a long-time meditation practitioner, Walter was introduced to the 3 reflections of non-self. At first they seemed too simple, but he decided to try. Each time anxiety rushed in, he softly said, "This is not mine." He felt the emotion present but did not cling to it. Then he said, "This is not me." He realized he was still breathing, still alive, still here beyond the sadness. Finally, he said, "This is not who I truly am." He touched the deep stillness inside that had never been lost. The first days were very difficult. The emotions were still strong. But little by little, Walter began to feel space between himself and anxiety. Sometimes only for a few seconds, yet those few seconds brought relief. One morning, as sunlight streamed through the window, the familiar sadness appeared but did not pull him under as before. He saw that emotions come and go, and he was still here. Walter did not forget his wife. The love and memory remained, but anxiety no longer ruled his life. He learned to live with memory without being drowned by it. These 3 reflections are not meant to deny emotion. They do not say you should not feel sad or afraid. They simply remind you that you are larger than every emotion passing through. When anxiety appears, try pausing for a moment. Breathe deeply. Then gently say, "This is not mine. This feeling is here, but I do not need to hold it. This is not me. I am the one who is aware of this feeling. This is not who I truly am. My deepest nature is awareness and peace." Each time you practice, you loosen the bond between yourself and suffering. Gradually, anxiety loses its power, not because you defeated it, but because you no longer identify with it. This is the heart of freedom in Buddhism. When you no longer cling to emotions as identity, the mind becomes light like the open sky. And in that space, peace does not need to be searched for. It has been there from the beginning. Now we bring what we have learned out of theory and into everyday life, where anxiety most often appears. There is no need for a special meditation room, no need for long periods of time. Only a few moments of awareness each time emotion arises. When you feel uneasiness beginning to spread in the chest or belly, gently pause. Place the body in a comfortable position, whether sitting on a chair, lying in bed, or standing in the kitchen. Breathe in slowly and deeply through the nose. Feel the air filling the chest. Breathe out long and softly through the mouth or nose. Do this 3 times. Then with each out-breath, quietly repeat the 3 sentences you learned. This is not mine. This is not me. This is not who I truly am. There is no need to rush. Let each sentence flow with the breath. Feel the body gradually relax. Imagine emotions as guests visiting your house. Sometimes the guests are joyful. Sometimes they are sad. Sometimes they are noisy. But you are the house, not the guest. You can open the door to let them in, allow them to sit and rest, and then let them leave when the time comes. You do not need to chase them away. You also do not need to hold them. Anxiety is a guest like this. When you fight it, it knocks louder. When you welcome it with awareness and compassion, it sits for a while and then goes. This practice is especially helpful at night when you cannot sleep, When thoughts race, return to the breath and the mantra. Feel the bed supporting the body. Listen to the sounds around you. Each breath is a reminder that you are safe in this moment. During lonely moments, when the house feels too quiet, place a hand on the heart and breathe slowly. Repeat the 3 sentences and imagine opening the door for the emotion to sit, then gently guiding it out. Even when the body aches, instead of tightening against discomfort, breathe into the area of pain and softly remind yourself that this sensation is not who you truly are. It is a phenomenon that arises and passes away. You can also bring this practice into very ordinary activities. When washing dishes, notice the warm water flowing over your hands and breathe slowly. When walking, feel the feet touching the ground and quietly repeat the mantra with each step. When drinking tea, feel the warmth in the palms and the breath moving in and out. Gradually, awareness is no longer something that happens only when sitting still. It becomes the way you live each moment. Anxiety may still visit, but it no longer takes over the house of the mind. Each time you practice, you teach the nervous system that there is no need to sound the alarm. You teach the mind that every emotion can be held and released. There is no need to be perfect. Some days you remember to practice, some days you forget. What matters is returning again and again. Over time, you will realize that peace is not a state without emotion, but the ability to open the door to every emotion as it comes and goes without losing the steady presence within. And that is the gentle freedom Buddhism offers in the later years of life. As we have walked through each step together, you may have begun to see anxiety with different eyes. It is no longer only an uncomfortable feeling to be removed, but a signal gently guiding you back toward deeper understanding and peace. In the light of Buddhist wisdom, anxiety is not an enemy of the spiritual life. It is a messenger, reminding us to pay attention, to pause, and to return to the present moment. Each anxious thought is like a small light on the dark sea. If we panic, we may think it is danger, but when we look closely, it is more like a lighthouse, illuminating where we are clinging, where we are afraid, and where we need to soften and let go. Because of that light, we no longer wander lost in the darkness of the mind. You have learned to see thoughts as just thoughts, to return to the breath, to hold emotions with compassion, and to release identification with anxiety. All of these practices are not meant to create a life without uneasiness, but to help you live more lightly even when uneasiness appears. Before we end, take a moment to gently ask yourself, when anxiety visits, do I usually fight it or listen to it? What am I holding on to that makes my heart restless? If I soften my grip just a little, how might life feel different? There is no need to answer right away. Simply allow these questions to settle in the heart like seeds. Over time, they will grow into understanding and peace. If today's reflections have brought you even a small sense of lightness, stay with Quiet Dharma Years in the videos to come. We share simple Buddhist teachings for the later years of life, helping you live slower, deeper, and more peacefully each day. You can subscribe to the channel so you do not miss these quiet moments. And if you wish, leave a short message sharing how you feel today. Every story is a precious connection. Thank you for spending this time listening and caring for your inner world. May, as you move into the evening or a new day, your heart feel lighter, your breath deeper, and may you remember that peace is not found in the absence of anxiety, but in the gentle way you walk with it on the path of awareness.